Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time zone you're watching this from. We're going to have a conversation around Tailwind CSS. Now, I'm a front-end developer. I love front-end, it's my passion. But I also tend to find some of the elements with regards to front-end development to be a little bit tedious, a little bit boring. So if you guys don't mind, we're going to jump right into it. Skip to the end, use Tailwind CSS. Thank you so much for coming to my talk. I really appreciate it. Here's the hand claps. I'm kidding, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you for the claps though. But we are definitely going to have a conversation around Tailwind. But before we get there, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a junior front-end developer. I have 1 to 2 years worth of experience, so therefore, I'm a baby. I also like to describe myself as this big ball of passion and energy, all stored into this, I think, 1.67 meter person you see standing in front of you. But I'm nervous, so please bear with me. And I told you all this information about myself, yet you don't know what my name is unless you have already. My name's Mika, or Mika, or Miki, depending on how you met me first. And my surname's Ngobeni. One other small, maybe irrelevant thing to know about me is that I have 70,000 followers on TikTok. I have about 2 likes by Drake. And my TikTok handle is @Minoja. Please follow me. I may or may not follow you back. But one last thing to know about me is that I graduated from Belgium campus IT University. And it is here, thank you, yeah. And it is here where my love for front-end grew. But where my love for IT in general was planted and then sprouted is at my old high school, Penryn College. Now, when you're in grade 10, you supposedly have to take 7 to 8 subjects that will shape your future. And amongst those subjects, I took geography. And while I took geography, my friends took IT instead. And every second break or so, my friends would come to me with papers and papers of code. And I'd ask them what it all meant. And then they looked at each other, laughed. And they were like, don't worry, we'll keep you in the loop. Whatever that meant. So I took a couple days to think about it. To be honest, I took an hour. And I dropped geography. And I took IT instead. And as a result, I got 2 out of 10 for my first test. It got better. I mean, I'm standing here now. So at the end of every year, while I took IT, we had these assessments, personal assessment tasks, where we had to solve a problem using a piece of code that we would build. And my IT teacher, she was dramatic. She said, and I quote, "Be imaginative. Let your imagination run wild." And that is exactly what we did. Except my class took it very seriously. It wasn't a joke. We wanted to see who would build the best pats. And I would win every single year. Not because my pat was the most logical, or my code was the most sound, or I was the smartest, no. But it was because, and I think all the UX and UI designers can agree with me here, that beauty beats logic at any given point. So you're probably wondering, what is it that Mika built that allowed for her to win these pats every single year? Essentially, I built a variation of a website. Now, websites weren't a part of our curriculum at the time. And for those of you who may not know what components make up the web or how they work together to give us the web, we're going to go through them quickly. The first one being HTML. That's briefly known as the skeleton of the web. And then we have JavaScript, loosely known as the logic of the web. And then we have, and my favorite component of the web, CSS. That's the pizzazz of the web. Now, CSS plays such a vital role with regards to how the web looks like, with regards to how it has personality. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the very first ever website ever on the internet. And this is it. No CSS whatsoever, just an HTML page couple tags, couple texts. And for our very first demo in this talk, we're going to give this website a little bit of pizzazz. So allow for me to escape the presentation, open up our project, and then open up what looks like a mock of our website. So this is it. It's not the actual website, but what I have built quite quickly, right? We're going to walk through the project structure of the website. Nothing too hectic. It's a folder with an image of a globe that we're going to use to decorate our website a little bit. And then we also have our index.html page. This is a standard index.html page, standard templates, couple meta tags, that's it. In our body, we have a header tag, World Wide Web, and then we also have a paragraph tag with a bunch of text in it. But the main thing to focus on here is line 7. This is our style sheets and where we've linked it. And this is where all the magic is going to happen. So I'm going to tab this to the left and open up our website. Now, the first thing we're going to do is give this website some color. I preferably don't like white websites. They look a little bit boring to me. So we're going to give our body a background color of blue. Now, we haven't really done much. It's just a blue background, but we're getting there. Black doesn't really work well on the blue, so we're going to change our heading. Let's give our heading the color, if you will, of white. And then we're also going to change the font family. And we're going to give this font family Lucida Sans, why not? And because it's also a heading, and the heading should be bigger than what it is right now, we're going to give our font size a font size of 4 rem. And though we haven't done much, with a couple lines of CSS, we've already given at least the header some personality. A couple more changes we're going to do. We're going to give our paragraph a background color as well. I work a lot with colors, so I knew that beige was going to work. And then we're also going to change our font family. And this time, give it Sigio something. I don't know how to pronounce it. And that's it that we're going to do for our paragraph. But to tie everything all together, we're going to add an image at the very bottom here. We're going to find our image in the image folder, give it the globe, save that. And though it does look quite massive, we've given our website some personality with just a couple lines of CSS. But this is also a very simple CSS page. When working with very complex websites and just using vanilla CSS, a page like this can get very long, very windy, very quickly. So let's get back to our presentation. I didn't show it yet, but I made the globe a little bit smaller just to give some emphasis. And like I mentioned, that these CSS pages can get long and windy quickly. How do I know this? Experience. So at BBD, we have the graduate program. And in this graduate program, we have level ups, where we get to learn about a different concept, a different framework regarding a specific software area development, the area of software development, be it C# with .NET, be it JavaScript with web development. And I want to talk to you about my favorite level up that included my 3 best friends, no introduction needed, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And in our group, we were consisted of 6 developers. 4 developers were back-end developers, so they knew very little to nothing about the web. And then 2 of us were front-end developers. One of us cared a lot about how the logic was in the front end. The other cared maybe too much about how the website looked like. I'm not going to mention who it is. But the problem was we were at a crunch for time. And so we couldn't have the time set aside to make our website look pretty. We just wanted to make sure that the website was actually working. So on the day of presentation, we showed our websites to all of the grads, including ATC. And most of our grads look like this because we were up until what, 2, 3 a.m. trying to get these websites to work. And Tabang from ATC had something particular to say about our website, and that it was very yellow. It was a very yellow website. This was our website, a Tinder for friends, as he described it. Essentially, what this website does is that it matches friends based on their hobbies, personalities, likes, etc. Another thing that Tabang mentioned was that our responsiveness was not that great either. Now, what responsiveness is how would your website or application look on a laptop versus a tablet versus a phone? This is what our website looked like on a phone. So our CSS was horrible. It was a 1-star at best, and after the presentation, we called it a day. I didn't call it a day, though. I went back home, and I wanted to see if I could recreate at least the front page of our website, recreate that still using CSS, as that was our restriction, no frameworks, no libraries, recreate that into something that I would have wanted. So our front page looked like this, and I recreated it to look something like this. It still took forever, since it was just in CSS. It took so long that I eventually gave up, but for the next part of the demo, very quickly, I want to show you just how many lines of CSS I had to write in order to make our friender reimagined. So again, allow me to exit the presentation and then open up our CSS project. So this is the project. Nothing too hectic, nothing impressive. We have an images folder that includes both the logo and also the background picture. And then we also have our index friender css.html page. And in this HTML page, we have a header, and this is where the navigation parts, the items are. And then we also have a main section. We're just going to pretend as if the entire ATC is not here because our semantic rules are out of the window, so sorry. But besides the HTML page, what I want to really show you is the CSS. Starting from the top. And I am still not done with this website. And just to open it up and show you what I mean by that, I'm going to run it on a live server. This was it, our Tinder for Friends reimagined. And what I meant by I'm not done is that I wanted to have some hovering on the buttons. There's no hovering. There is some hovering on the navigation, so that's great. But the main issue that I have with this website that I haven't finished is responsiveness. Now, as the screen gets smaller, the body may get better or not, but nothing really works as the screen gets smaller. And how it looks like on the phone, I haven't really fixed that either. So I let go of working on this project for a couple of months because it truly did frustrate me a lot. A couple months down the line, I found myself scrolling on Twitter. And I found something quite interesting on there. But before I do tell you what I found on Twitter, please don't forget to follow me on Twitter. This is my handle. This time, I will follow you back. But what I found on Twitter was this. Responsiveness in anything that isn't Tailwind is just a pain in the butt. Me being a curious Gen Z, I decided to do some more research on that, and I found that Tailwind is actually a CSS framework. And because of that, I did more research. Because at that point, I was fed up with vanilla CSS. Anything was better than CSS. So what is Tailwind? And why does it have a tail? So Tailwind CSS and vanilla CSS do the exact same thing. They take what looks like an ordinary website, bland, boring, and recreates it to look, for example, a really yellow website. But to give it more definition, Tailwind CSS is a utility-first, low-level-based CSS framework. And it's comprised of multiple utility classes that are named in such a way that you know exactly what it does when you use it. Compared to vanilla CSS, it takes what looks like a lot of CSS and shortens it to look something like this. Now, for those of you who already prefer vanilla CSS instead of any framework, you may be looking at this and thinking it's garbage. Fair, I did too, the first time I saw it. Now, I mentioned that Tailwind CSS is comprised of utility classes that are named in such a way that you might know what it does when you use it. And I want to work through a couple of those. The first one being MD:H-32. Simply put, it means on medium screens and bigger, let the height be 32 elements or units. The next one being PX-2. And that means with the padding on the x-axis, so padding on the left and padding on the right, let that be 2 units. And then the last one being BG-black. That means let the background be black. So I was intrigued. If it took me long to rebuild our friend or reimagined using CSS, how long would it take me to rebuild it in Tailwind? Would it take longer? Would I be bored? Would I get annoyed? So that is exactly what I did. Except this time I didn't finish it on purpose. Because what we're going to do for our last presentation, I promise, is that we're going to finish it off here. Awesome. So this is our Tailwind CSS project structure. A little bit more complicated compared to the structure I showed you for our CSS project. And what I'm going to do is work you through just a couple of the files and what that has to do with Tailwind. The first one being package.json. We have a dev dependency of Tailwind CSS on here. And then we also have 2 scripts that I've written, and I'll explain to you exactly what they do in a couple of seconds. The next page to look at is our tailwind.config.js. And simply put, this is the configuration of our content. I've extended our theme to include a screens object. Now, this is where all of the breakpoints for our screen will be defined. And then I've also put an object for all of our colors. This is the main colors of our project. And the last bit to look at here and to take note of is our content tag. Now, in the content tag, this is where we tell Tailwind, these are all the HTML pages that include Tailwind CSS classes. So look out for that. Then we also have our style sheet, input.css, you can name it whatever. And in here, we pull down all of Tailwind stylings using the @Tailwind directive. So this bit that you see here. We pull down its base, its components, its utilities. And in here, we have access to Tailwind CSS, really. And we can also state all of our CSS custom classes that we can create. I've created one called navigation items, and we're going to play around that a little bit. We make use of this @apply directive, which means that when we make this custom CSS class, inline all of Tailwind's styling, shortly put. Which then brings us back to the scripts. The first one being build. And in this script, we say essentially, take our input.css style sheet, so the one that has the directives and our custom classes, compile that, and then output it into our main.css sheet. You can call this sheet whatever you'd like. And watches it every time it builds. And now for the fun part, index.render.html. And I want to zoom this out to give you perspective as to how much code I had to write to recreate our Tinder for friends. That's it. I haven't really done much with regards to writing lines of code, but it gives us the exact same page. I'm going to open this with the live server so you can see our page. And we're almost done. I've added some hovering on the buttons, so that's great. But I haven't added any hovering on the navigation items, and we're going to do that just very quickly. So going back to our project, coming here and zooming in, I want the items, when hovered, to highlight blue. So I'm going to type here hover, colon, and let the text, when hovered, be light blue. And I'm going to save this a couple of times because this has a tendency of embarrassing me. Going back, and works. Now, Tailwind has this really cool intelligence where it shows you just how much CSS you would have had to write if you didn't code this in Tailwind. And this is how much CSS I would have had to write. I'm a lazy developer. This works for me. What I also haven't done on this website is add some functionality with regards to responsiveness. Now, if I was to make this screen past the medium screen's breakpoints, and that's 768 pixels, the body responds fine, but the navigation items don't look that great. And so what I want to do is when we reach the medium screen's breakpoints and smaller, I want the navigation items to disappear, and I want a burger icon there instead. So quickly adding that, we're going to go into our index_render.html and look for our navigation items. And I'm going to add here the property hidden. Now, Tailwind CSS is a mobile-first framework, meaning that whatever CSS we write on here, it caters to how it would look like on mobile screens first. And so if I was to save this a couple of times again, open it up, once I go past the medium screen breakpoints, it should disappear, and it does. And when that happens, I want there to be a burger menu instead. I've written a code snippet because I'm lazy. And this is where the burger menu will be. I'm going to save that, open it up, and you should see it there. But like I mentioned, it is mobile first. And we're already looking at what looks like a mobile screen. So if I was to go bigger, the burger menu would still be there. So I need to write some code that will tell Tailwind when we go from medium screens and bigger, let the burger menu disappear. And that's quite simple. Coming on here, I add the class tag, and then I say on medium screens, let the burger menu disappear. And it's gone. And this is the part where you clap. Awesome. All right, Mix, why are you telling us this? CSS may be slower in terms of development, at least. But ultimately, Tailwind CSS is still CSS. CSS can still get the job done. I don't need to learn a new framework. Fair point. Allow me to give you a different perspective. We live in a very fast-paced world, and there are so many different things that we're responsible over, be it in our personal lives, be it in our professional lives. And we need to look for ways to handle these things that we're responsible over as stress-free and as comfortably as possible. For instance, Amazon can provide you with quick same-day delivery in this car. You'll get your products, no hassle, and the driver in this car will insure it. But I'm pretty sure that the drivers in this car, or that the drivers will be a lot less angrier because they have to deliver 50 million products. They'd be a lot less angrier if they drove a car that looked a little like this. And why is that? Why would they be a lot less angrier? It's because this car is faster, it's a lot more comfortable. It gives them a better driving experience, or therefore a better delivery experience altogether. CSS is this car for me. Tailwind is this car for me. It gives me a better developer experience altogether. Now, developer experience is described as the experience that developers have when having to make use of a new tool, framework, what have you. And though businesses do a great job when having to look after user experience, so that's UX, they don't get developer experience quite right. Nowadays, every company wants to become a tech company, if not want to add some sort of tech element into their company. But the only tech companies that will stand the test of time are the ones that do more than just pay developers their salaries. And I think BBD does a great job at this. The employees that are looked after most are the ones that want to deliver quality solutions. And by being looked after, I don't mean just giving us free food and beers. Though it works, please don't stop. What I mean by that is BBD will strive to ensure that our frustrations are minimized based on our personal lives or even our professional lives. And we as devs also tend to make our lives a little bit easier by looking for tools and frameworks that will make them easier. With that said, Andre will be having a talk after me regarding cloud technology and how that will make your life easier. Backend developers, platform developers, I encourage you to go and watch it. So it's not just the NB that we look after or that businesses look after UX and UI. It's also important that they look after developer experience too. All of that to say we have feelings too. Maybe not all of us, but most of us do. So mix developer experience, you have a better developer experience using Tailwind CSS. Why should we care? Prabhakar Simek, he's the CEO of DX Heroes, and he did a study around developer experience. And what his study showed was that teams that have a better developer experience altogether, these developers are a lot more friendlier, they're a lot happier, and they also have a greater sense of ownership. Above all that, they just love what they do. It's no longer just about the money anymore sometimes. They also want to make sure that the solutions that they provide work, but that they're also proud of it. And on the flip side, we have teams with not that great developer experience. These teams are a lot more hostile, and they don't love what they do anymore. When crunch time comes, they want to give a solution that just works. They're no longer proud of it. They just want to get the damn thing up there. For example, meet Bill Playman. He's a tech lead. He's 25 years old, and he spends half his day on Teams meetings trying to convince clients that they cannot have a Netflix, in a YouTube, in a TikTok on their banking app. And from a business angle, developer experience counts. The teams that don't have great developer experience may provide you with the solution that may not even be up to standard. So much so that you would have to return those solutions to the developers because there are a lot of prod issues. So great developer experience from a business angle saves you effort in time, cost, and ultimately a great experience. All this to say that anything is better than CSS, let's remember that. All right, Mix, we get it. CSS in terms of developer experience, not that great, but we already have a framework that has been solving all our CSS issues, and it's been working. Wait for it. Bootstrap. Bootstrap. The one CSS framework that has been solving all of our developer or CSS developing issues for the past, 15 million years or so? And I get it. But why do I get it? It's simple. It's easy to use once you've gotten the hang of it. And there's also plentiful documentation there since it's been around for 20 million years. So once you understand CSS, you will understand Bootstrap. Side story. We'll get back to Bootstrap now. I didn't always look like this, contrary to popular belief. In the year 2020, I decided to get my fitness goals seriously. And because it was COVID times, the gym was closed. And so I did a lot of home workouts. And if you are like me, trying to get your fitness goals up in the year 2020, you probably recognize this person on the screen here. And if you don't, this is Chloe Ting. She carried all of us with our home workouts. I did every Instagram workout you can think of. I also read that consistency was key. And so I did the same thing at the same time every day for 1.5 years, and I saw nothing. I saw no results. At some point, my brother got this awakening, and he became a personal trainer, and a good one at that. And he gave me this workout program that included exercises and workouts that I wasn't familiar with. Exercises like deadlifts, whatever the heck this is. But most importantly, his program said that I needed to step outside of my safety net, which was the studio, and into the big bad world of the weight section. But I was fine in the studio doing my 3 to 4 weightless workouts that gave me minimal results, but I was comfortable. Needless to say, though, in 3 months' time, I saw a lot more progress than I did in 1.5 years. If you close one eye, and that one eye that's open happens to be blind, I look like this guy. It took getting me out of my comfort zone and trying new things where I saw the most results and had the most fun. All of this to loosely say that yes, Bootstrap is great, it's simple, it's amazing. But for most developers, it's a safety net. It's a crutch, if you will. Plentiful developers have been using this framework. Why shouldn't you? It's also component-based, meaning that you won't have to create interface components like nav bars, like buttons from scratch. It's there. Reuse it. But because it's reusable and because it's readily made, once you get the hang of Bootstrap, you'll notice that every second website looks the same. And you'll see it everywhere. You'll see it on mommy blog sites. You'll see it on personal training sites. You'll see it on how-tos underneath your toilet seat. You'll see them everywhere. And this is where Tailwind strives. Tailwind is a utility framework, is made of utility classes that are made up of CSS building blocks. So it's not component-based. But this also means that you can put these CSS blocks, building blocks, together in such a way that you can create beautiful and unique components and ultimately a unique website that stands amongst the rest. Mix. Okay, I promise this is the last time I'm using this picture, but Mix, listen. We don't care about originality, hey? We just want to get this website out there. Bootstrap has been working. We want to focus on the bigger issue at hand. Bootstrap's bundle size is about that number I don't know how to describe. And then Tailwind is 27. The size difference in between these is 8%. Tailwind CSS is 8% the size of Bootstrap. And that's a big number. But who cares, right? When we have the access of 4G and 5G, that size difference doesn't really matter. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the greatest phenomenon to have ever existed in South Africa, and also known as the reason why you should care: load shedding. This is an accurate depiction of what we don't have. But it's fine. When the electricity goes, I'm not worried. What really grinds my potatoes, though, is that when the electricity leaves, all of a sudden I'm on 3G. And before I've even had time to process what is going on, I'm on edge. But that's okay. Electricity will come back, and so will the network. But unfortunately, that's not the reality for most people. We're in South Africa. A third world country. And the South African And the South African World Bank Poverty Report stated that approximately 55%, or almost 30 million people, are still living in poverty. And amongst those that can even afford a phone, never mind data, almost 60% of mobile subscriptions are still using 3G. That means that when load shedding hits, your 60% of your potential customers are accessing your solutions using 3G or possibly even less. So this means that we need to create solutions and products and websites that can cater to those who are still using 3G. You can't assume that our customer base is accessing our solutions using high-speed internet. On an Omni calculator, I checked to see how long it would take to download 1 megabyte of data using 3G. And it takes about 2 seconds to download 1 megabyte on 3G. And I'm already an impatient person. But just to give you a couple practical stats, statistics from Pew Research Center showed that you have about 4 seconds until people leave your website. So 4 seconds until a quarter of your potential users leave your website if it doesn't load. And amongst those people that loaded, that stayed within those 4 seconds, for each second that they waited, 16% of your customer satisfaction is dropped. It also showed that users tend to remember loading times to be 35% longer than it is. And 46% of users don't come back to your website if it doesn't load quickly. So this matters. All right, Mix. Tailwind CSS. Where are the red flags? The first one being this. Your HTML can look like this, and if you love CSS, then you would know that this is not the way to go. The second one being that in order for you to know Tailwind, you must know CSS first. So you cannot know and understand the beauty that Tailwind is unless you know the building blocks. And maybe I'm biased, but this truly is the only set of disadvantages I could think of. But maybe there's one more fruitful one. You don't want to know about Tailwind CSS because you might not want to learn anything new. You may not want to explore a different avenue that may be difficult or time-consuming, or you don't even care. And as I close, this may apply to everyone, but particularly to my grads, I implore you. We're young, and we're all in the same age group, 22, 23, upwards, unless you're Uvia, who's basically 4 years old. We have a lot of time on our hands. And we're at that sweet spot in life where we get to try something new, fail, brush it off, and try again. So if you find yourself bored, curious about front end, with a little bit of CSS in your back pocket, try Tailwind CSS. Trudge through that HTML. Who knows? You might like it. So with all of that being said, just give me a second. Just a second. We're almost there. We're just gonna, skip to the end. Use Tailwind CSS. Thank you so much. Oh, damn, okay. Okay, 2 questions. Yes.
Hi, I'm Dimple.
Hi.
I just want to know, what is the learning curve, or how steep was the learning curve from CSS to Tailwind, and how long did it take you to fully adapt and be comfortable?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, that you need to know quite a bit of CSS in order for you to know Tailwind. And so because I already knew CSS, it didn't take me that long to try and figure out Tailwind. Also, Tailwind has like a lot of documentation, maybe not as much as Bootstrap, but it's there and it's available. And once you actually start learning Tailwind, I highly suggest that you make use of their intelligence because it'll show you what it should have looked like on CSS so that you kind of understand the differences in between the two. So it took me 2 weeks, I think, to like get the hang of it, not to be a professional, get the hang.
2 weeks of how many hours, girl?
Say that again, please.
2 weeks of how many hours?
2 weeks and how many hours? That depends on you. For me, it took me like 2 weeks and then like an hour, I guess, per day. Not that long.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Pindi. And I love CSS, the vanilla one.
You what?
No,
Sorry?
vanilla CSS. I really like it.
Oh, you really
But
like it?
this was really good. I will give Tailwind a try. Just one of my questions is, you mentioned in the red flags as I was like as you're going through your presentation that there's a lot of inline styling. And yeah, so one of the great things about like just having vanilla CSS, having those CSS files on the side and putting everything there, is there any workaround around that, like being able to have reusability
So
and
there
things
is.
like that?
Yeah, there is. But it truly depends on how often your CSS inlining is repeated. So for example, I had the navigation tab with the items and they all did the same thing. So in your input.css, so where you pull all of your Tailwind stylings and where you can create a custom CSS class, you can put it there and then use that name of the custom class and then put it onto the HTML. That's about it though.
Cool.
No, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Mika. Ladies and gents, any more questions, please reach out to Mika. For now, can we take a comfort break, smoke break, revival for 10 minutes?